The most powerful woman in the room dropped her glass when she saw her daughter running. For 7 years, little Emma had been unable to take a single step without assistance. Doctors had told her mother that the paralysis caused by a terrible childhood accident might never fully disappear. Yet that night, beneath the golden chandeliers of one of the city's most luxurious hotels, Emma suddenly pushed herself away from her wheelchair and ran straight toward a man everyone else had ignored, a tired, ordinary mechanic in a faded blue shirt. The woman froze in disbelief as her daughter threw herself into his arms, laughing and crying at the same time. Nobody in that ballroom understood what they were witnessing. But for Emma's mother, it was the beginning of a truth that would change everything. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change a person's life, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes the greatest miracle someone has ever received. Victoria Hale was a woman whose name opened doors before she even touched them. She owned one of the largest technology companies in the country, lived in a glass mansion overlooking the ocean, and was constantly surrounded by people who wanted something from her. Businessmen wanted contracts, investors wanted favors, and socialites wanted invitations. But none of that mattered to Victoria when it came to her only daughter, Emma. 7 years earlier, Emma had been an energetic little girl who loved running through gardens and chasing butterflies. Then one rainy afternoon, a terrible accident changed everything. Emma survived, but the damage to her spine left her unable to walk. Victoria spent millions on specialists, rehabilitation centers, experimental treatments, and private therapists. She hired the best doctors money could find, but nothing seemed to restore the movement in Emma's legs. Slowly, Emma stopped asking when she would walk again. She simply accepted the wheelchair as part of her life. Victoria tried to give her daughter everything except the one thing Emma wanted most, a normal childhood. She bought her expensive toys, built an indoor playground, arranged private lessons, and even transformed part of their mansion into a miniature amusement center. But Emma still looked through the windows at children running outside and wondered what it felt like to move without thinking about every inch of her body. Victoria secretly blamed herself for the accident, even though she had not caused it. She believed that if she worked harder, spent more money, or found one more doctor, she could somehow repair the past. Across town lived Daniel Carter, a single father who owned a small auto repair shop. Daniel had never met Victoria, never cared about luxury hotels, and had no idea who Emma was. His life was simple and difficult. Every morning he opened his garage before sunrise, worked until his hands were covered in grease, and then hurried home to prepare dinner for his 12-year-old son, Noah. Daniel's wife had died several years earlier after a long illness, leaving him to raise their son alone. He had learned to live without complaining. He knew what it meant to lose someone you loved and still wake up the next morning because a child depended on you. One evening, Daniel was repairing an old car outside his garage when he noticed a little girl sitting alone in a wheelchair near the sidewalk. Her expensive clothes and polished shoes told him she came from a wealthy family, but what caught his attention was the sadness in her eyes. Her private driver had stepped away to make a phone call, and Emma had accidentally dropped a small toy beneath the car parked beside her. Daniel crouched down, retrieved it, cleaned the dirt from it, and handed it back to her. He did not ask her name. He did not mention her wheelchair. He simply treated her like any other child. That small moment became the beginning of an unlikely friendship. Over the following weeks, Emma's driver occasionally brought her past Daniel's garage. She began watching him work. Daniel showed her how engines worked, let her hold harmless tools, and sometimes allowed Noah to sit beside her while they talked about school, cartoons, and silly childhood dreams. Daniel never told Emma that she was fragile. Instead, he treated her as capable. When she struggled with a simple mechanical puzzle he gave her, he waited patiently instead of doing it for her. When she became frustrated, he reminded her that struggling did not mean failing. Victoria eventually discovered that Emma had been visiting the mechanic's garage. At first, she was furious. She thought Daniel was taking advantage of her daughter. She drove to the garage prepared to confront him, expecting to find some greedy man trying to get close to her family. Instead, she saw something she had not seen in years. Emma was laughing. Not the polite little laugh she gave therapists. Not the forced smile she used to reassure her mother. She was genuinely happy. Victoria watched from her car as Daniel helped Emma practice standing. He placed a sturdy metal support in front of her and stood several feet away. He did not pull her upward. He simply encouraged her to try. Emma's legs trembled violently. She almost collapsed twice. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground, then helped her sit down and told her to rest. There was no miracle that afternoon. Emma did not suddenly walk. But for the first time in years, she had tried without being afraid. Victoria drove away without speaking to anyone. Weeks passed, and Emma's determination grew. Daniel designed simple exercises using equipment from his garage, while Victoria secretly hired another physical therapist to work alongside him. The doctor was initially skeptical, but the combination of physical therapy and Emma's renewed confidence began producing tiny changes. A twitch in one foot became controlled movement. Controlled movement became balance. Balance became standing. Then came the night of Victoria's charity gala. The hotel was filled with celebrities, executives, politicians, and wealthy donors. Victoria had organized the event to raise money for children with disabilities. Emma was supposed to make a short appearance before being taken home. She arrived in her wheelchair wearing a beautiful pink dress, while Victoria stayed beside her. Daniel had been invited because Victoria wanted to publicly thank him, though he felt uncomfortable among people wearing expensive suits and gowns. He arrived in his cleanest shirt and a simple jacket. Some guests looked at him curiously, wondering who the ordinary mechanic was doing at such an exclusive event. Then Emma saw him. Her face changed instantly. She pushed herself out of the wheelchair. Victoria instinctively reached for her, terrified that Emma would fall. But Emma was already moving. One step. Then another. Her knees shook, her arms stretched forward, and tears streamed down her face. The ballroom fell silent. Daniel dropped to his knees and opened his arms. Emma took another step. Then another. And suddenly she was running. She crossed the polished ballroom floor and crashed into Daniel's arms. He caught her tightly as she laughed against his shoulder. Victoria stood frozen, tears filling her eyes. Around them, hundreds of guests watched in stunned silence. The doctors later explained that Emma's recovery had been developing gradually. There had been no single miracle cure. Her body had responded to therapy, exercise, and time. But Victoria knew something else had changed. Her daughter had stopped believing that she was broken. Daniel had never given Emma money. He had never promised her a miracle. He had simply treated her with dignity when everyone else treated her like a patient. That night, Victoria approached Daniel and thanked him. Daniel shook his head and told her that Emma had done the hard work herself. Victoria looked at the man she once suspected and realized that wealth could buy the best equipment in the world, but it could not buy the feeling of being believed in. The following year, Victoria created a foundation for children with mobility challenges. Daniel became one of its advisors, not because he was wealthy or famous, but because he understood something many experts had forgotten: children need hope as much as they need treatment. Emma continued therapy. She still had difficult days. She still sometimes needed her wheelchair. Her recovery was not perfect, and neither was her life. But now she understood that progress did not have to be dramatic to be meaningful. Sometimes one step was enough. Sometimes standing for 5 seconds was enough. Sometimes simply trying again was a victory. Years later, Emma would remember that ballroom more clearly than any expensive gift her mother had ever given her. She remembered the polished floor, the shocked faces, her mother crying, and Daniel kneeling with his arms open. Most of all, she remembered the moment she realized that people could see more in her than her disability. If this story touched your heart, please support this video with a like, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more emotional stories about kindness, family, hope, and second chances. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need their message. And before the story ends, write "one step at a time" in the comments if you believe that kindness and encouragement can help someone discover strength they never knew they had. Emma never became a symbol because she was wealthy. Daniel never became a hero because he was famous. They became unforgettable because, for one ordinary moment, one man chose to see a little girl for who she truly was, not as a wheelchair, not as a diagnosis, and not as a billionaire's daughter, but simply as a child who deserved someone to believe in her. And sometimes, that is all a person needs to take their first step.